Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, it's his first time in Saudi Arabia, so let's give him a big, let's cheer him on when he comes on stage. And he's going to be speaking about data security everywhere, the importance of data in the interconnected world. Our speaker is the Senior Vice President of Global Sales Engineering at Forcepoint. Please, put your hands together for Vince Spina.
Good afternoon, Riyadh. How we doing? Everybody good? All right. As the gentleman said, my name is Vince Spina. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales Engineering for Forcepoint. In that role, I have the privilege of leading a very intelligent group of SEs. Today, I'm going to talk about the importance of safeguarding data in an interconnected world. It'll be very high level. There's some themes that I want to get out, but in the time frame that I have, can't go too deep, but if I pique your interest in any way, we have a booth out there and we'd really like to have a much deeper conversation with you. But thanks for having me. So I want to start with a question, which is, how do I safeguard my data in an interconnected world? And the easy answer is, you protect that data wherever it resides. And here you see a list of data channels. Channels where data will reside in a borderless environment. Endpoints, I think we all know what that means. That's our personal computers, it's tablets, it's our mobile phone. And on those devices, they tend to have things like storage and memory, maybe USB ports, a print channel. And all of those things mean there's data either coming in, going out, or going through. And all that data needs to be protected. Another really important data channel is the network. In a network, you have to think in three ways. There will be data in use, there will be data in transit across that network, and there will be data that's at rest, usually in a storage device. And then lastly, most of the other channels like email, your private applications, cloud applications, and web, that's all kind of understood. We interact with those on a daily basis. But the last one is Gen AI, and I tell you, the first time here in Saudi Arabia, first I want to tell you, it's just a fantastic place. I only have a week that I've been here, but I found just the culture to be fantastic. What's going on here is amazing, and the people, the customers that I've gotten to meet have just been fantastic. And what I learned over the last couple days is Gen AI and large language models is something that's on every leader's mind here and in the rest of the world. So I'm going to drill down on that use case and that data channel a little bit more, because I think in the world of interconnected environments, that's a huge topic. And I have down here that it is what I call the fourth connected industrial revolution, and I'll explain that a little bit more. And really the premise of that is, over the last 200 years, we didn't have to really interact with each other. We didn't have to be that independent or interdependent. But over time and leading to now, that has all been flipped. So here are kind of those four connected industrial revolutions that we've seen over time. The first one happened in the late 1700s, and that's where rural and agricultural societies became more industrial, and they started coming together. And that was based on the advent of the steam engine and railroads. You think, 200 years ago we had tribes, we had villages, and they kind of were separate. But when the railroad system came in, it started to connect people, and they can now start trading between them. Fast forward now 100 years to the late 1800s, and with the invention or the development of both electricity and oil, it now started building out new industries where they could mass produce. And we had certain things like the telephone, airplanes, the light bulb, all that was invented. And again, that started bringing people closer together and be able to interact and do business. Just 40 years ago, in my opinion, we saw the third industrial connected revolution. That's known as the digital revolution, and that's where analog and mechanical devices started becoming digital. And that's where we had inventions like the internet and what is now called the smartphone. And when you think about those with the internet, that brought the world got very small very quickly. And with the mobile phone and a smartphone, we weren't tethered now to our homes, our businesses, a payphone. We could move around the world and interact and do business. That now takes us today, what I think we are now in the fourth connected industrial revolution, and that really is the blurring between technology and our lives. And this technology is now being embedded in everything we do. And some key examples of that are things like augmented reality, virtual reality, robotics, and artificial intelligence. And it's artificial intelligence, again, that I want to really drill down. So we're in this interconnected world, and we have this technology called artificial intelligence, and there's huge benefits, but there's also huge risks. Let's talk a little bit about that. So first of all, the benefits. And I want you to visualize, and I'll tell you, I sat through a lot of the sessions yesterday, and there were a couple that really hit me, and I'm going to utilize kind of a metaphor that I heard in one of the sessions. I want you to think about you are the CEO of a company, and you have over 200 million employees that work for you. And all those employees have the IQ of an Elon Musk. So you got 200 million Elons working for you with high IQs. When you think about the intellectual horsepower you have with people that intelligent, and you think about how 200 million people can execute against anything you want them to do in real time, that's where we are with AI today. So when you think about some of these benefits, things like improved data-driven decision making, or competitive advantage, or the ability to expedite content development, or quite frankly, anything that you want to build or deliver in real time, that's what AI gives you. To put this into perspective, by next year alone, it's believed that large language models, or AI models, will be a $60+ billion business, and generative AI will take about 30% of that market. When you put that into dollars and cents, we believe by the year 2030, the GDP will grow by 14%, or somewhere in the neighborhood of $16 trillion. So the benefits are huge. But the risks are also high, because going back to my metaphor, where you have 200 million individuals working for you at an IQ of an Elon Musk, and you don't know who all those people are, you're going to have some bad actors in that group. Most people are good, but because they're humans, those humans make mistakes as well. And when you're thinking about the world of AI, and you're starting to inject information and this LLM, these things called AI is starting to grow, if you're a bad actor, you have the ability to put malicious information into that model, or quite frankly, just people making mistakes can also add information that probably shouldn't be in there. Things like maybe your CEO's salary structure, people's healthcare situation. It allows you to inject biases. And some, again, people are going to do that maliciously. Some are just going to make mistakes. So the risks are high. And when you think about it, we've actually seen this play out in the news. Won't read any of these, but when you look at some of the bigger risks that have happened, and on here you see certain companies like Boeing and MGM and Okta, none of us want to see our brand in the news for these kind of reasons. And I would tell you that there's an old adage that any advertisement is good advertisement. I suggest to you, if you talk to any of these brands, they would say that's not the case. So listen, governments and nations are starting to get involved in that, and they understand the risks, they understand the benefits. But here you see regulations in selected jurisdictions around the world starting to put laws in place. And most of them are to hold enterprises accountable for keeping their employees and their customers' information safe. And in a lot of cases, there's huge fines if you don't do that. But I know in 2030, there's a lot of goals and initiatives that are in place. And the one figure that I do remember is in that 2030 plan that Saudi Arabia has in place, 66, I believe this to be the number, of 99 of the goals of that 2030 plan deals with AI and data specifically. So good on you here, because really taking it seriously and, in my opinion, leading the way for the rest of the world to follow. So now I just really wanted to highlight we're in this connected world. AI is the big use case and the value, and there's huge benefits, but there's huge risks. And the walkaway here is I want to make sure that we understand that there are things that you could put in place to keep your data more safe. It isn't foolproof, but if you put this plan in place, I think you'll find you'll have significant benefit and your risk exposure will go significantly down. The first thing I want to say is we have to simplify our environments. Our networks and our environments are just too complex. And the first thing I would tell you is we need to consolidate the number of tools that we're using. This is an IDC survey that they asked respondents, how many security tools do you have in your environment today to protect your brand? And if you read this, you'll see that 75% of the respondents said they have somewhere between 20 and 80 security tools that they're using today. I submit to you that is way too many tools, and we need to start consolidating those to make it more simple. The graphic on the right suggests that people understand this, and it was a high percentage of respondents that say they understand that they want to do that. And you see here 50% of that group is doing that now, but unfortunately that means 50% are not. So I suggest it isn't more tools that you need to do to manage your network, but what you need is a very specific and thought out strategic plan, a 360-degree life cycle approach to safeguarding this data that's all over the world and is fully integrated. Those 5 steps, and I'll talk a little bit about them, are identify your data, classify it, prioritize it, protect it, and monitor it continuously. And this isn't a one-time, this is a continuous thing, and it's built on 2 technologies. And those 2 technologies are DSPM, which is Data Security Posture Management, and the second one is DLP, Data Loss Prevention. As I talk to customers, most people understand DLP. It's been around for a long time. I can tell you in this interconnected world, it's in vogue again. And we're really seeing an uptick in the amount of customers that are putting that in play. DSPM is a newer technology. It's been around a little bit longer, but it's one that folks don't necessarily understand. And we'll go through what the power of that can be for your enterprise. So the first thing is I want to talk about steps 1 and 2. And steps 1, 2, and 3 come under this umbrella of DSPM. And the first thing that a DSPM tool does for you, it can go out to all these disparate data channels, these environments, and discover your data. You see in this graphic to the left a bunch of icons that you've seen before, Google apps, Microsoft apps, Box, things like that. Those are places in your environments where data resides. A good DSPM tool will go out there and discover the data. Now, I can tell you that is not easy, and that's a separation between one person's DSPM tool and another. To be able to figure out what data is out there, you have to build what's a connector, which is essentially an API where the DSPM tool can talk to that application and fully understand what data resides in that data store. And that brings you, once you've discovered your data, it brings you to the identification of that data. And you see some examples, a lot of examples of what you want to know. You might want to know if there are social security numbers out in those data channels. You might want to know driver's license information, somebody's age, their race, their gender, their employment, their salary, their education. That's what a DSPM tool will do. It will tell you that you have that kind of data and where it resides. Once you know that, you want to characterize that into groupings. And you see things like PII and PCI and ITAR and GDPR. You take all that data, and with your tool, and when I say you, this isn't you doing it, this is AI helping you understand and leading you to what they think it is. Now, we're teaching that model all the time, so it doesn't get it right all the time, and sometimes a human does have to interact with that and course correct it, but AI just keeps getting smarter and smarter. So now you've taken all that data, you've categorized it, and now you want to classify it. And you want to classify it based on importance and sensitivity. And you see some level of tagging, meta tags that you can put. Is that data, does it need to be confidential or private? Is it sensitive or secret? Is it high priority or low priority? You working with your AI model inside of a DSPM, you classify all that. Once you have that, you move to what is called step 3, and that's prioritizing it. And basically what a good DSPM tool will do, once it's cataloged all your information, it'll give you a prioritized list of what it believes the biggest threats in rank order is in your network, and gives you the ability to remediate those on the fly. That's what DSPM does. It discovers, it classifies, categorizes, and it remediates. And this is something with that tool, you can rinse and repeat. You can do that over and over and over. The thing a DSPM tool won't do is protect you from the next threat. So it'll find them, it'll help you remediate it, but that's now where we move into the integration of a good DLP tool. Now that moves you into the ability to protect that. So once you know what those risks are and you see those risks, you can now create a policy, a DLP policy, to make sure that risk or those risks never happen again. And you do those based on those data channels. And I would suggest to you, you start with the data channel that would give you the biggest return, because setting up a DLP environment is not easy. Most customers, that will take somewhere between 6 months and 18 months to fully complete. But when it's done, I can tell you almost every customer that I talk to say it's essential building out those policies to protecting their brand. So I suggest you start with the data channel that gives you the most bang for the buck. DSPM will help you understand that. What I find as a practitioner talking to customers, most of that is the endpoint channel for all the reasons we talked about. It's got storage, it's ingressing and egressing through its print channel, USB ports, etc. But also, if you think about it, in the world of connected communication, one endpoint talks to another, and it talks across a lot of those other data channels called email or web or cloud. So if you start with the endpoint, you'll see a huge return for that. And then right after that, it's the UI use case that most people go after. The thing I want to talk about DLP, I said building out those policies can be really hard. One thing when you're looking for a DLP tool to use, look for one that allows you to create a single policy and apply that same policy uniformly across all those data channels. Meaning, if you do build a policy and you apply that policy to the endpoint data channel, very simply now you can also apply it to your email channel, your web, your cloud, etc. And like I said, setting up that first environment is very hard. After that, it gets significantly easier after that. All right, last was monitor. And basically, you want this to be automated. You want to make sure that your tool is continually watching what's happening. You want to make sure that it's watching what policies are happening. And it applies automatically adaptive context to those what the policies are being set. And what I mean by that is if you have a DLP solution and all it does is allow and block, it's going to make a decision saying this can happen or that cannot happen. You want one that thinks in context and applies or suggests the changing of a policy or a creation of a policy based on context of what it's seeing. And I'll give you an example. And this is real world, and I call it a lever situation. You have an employee, they work for you. They go out to LinkedIn, I bet you don't have a DLP policy says they can't go to LinkedIn. That same user now goes out and looks at the job board. Again, probably not a DLP policy that stops that. The next thing that person does is uploads their CV, their resume. No policy against that. In a very short period of time, that user is now moving content from their professional computer out to a box or a cloud storage device. You may or may not have a policy for that, but if the content is on a work computer, but it's cataloged as public, it might allow that. But a good DLP system that's monitoring that starts thinking contextually and says, I have a user, none of the things that person did on their own I would block, but the fact that somebody went to LinkedIn, looked at a job board, uploaded the resume, and is now starting moving data off of their computer, I highly suggest we build a policy to not allow that. And the activity might not be blocked, but it could be quarantine, it could be warn the user, something like that. So that's what a good monitoring system is. Now I want to just move to the Gen AI use case and just give you a visual of how DSPM and DLP would work together. So let's talk about managing access. So you're in your enterprise, you're using 5, say, large language models, 5 types of AI systems, and you have a certain group, and of that group, you want that group to be able to utilize 2 of those systems, but not 3 of them. You can easily block the ones they can't get to and allow the ones they can. You can do block uploading, which means for those users that you're going to let them into those 2 LLMs, you want them to be able to have access, but you want to block any files being uploaded to that. You can control data use. It's the same thing. That group can get to it. Certain files based on the classification tags that you put on them, it allows certain tags to go through and go into the AI system, but others will get blocked. And then we learned about monitoring. Monitoring is always watching and wanting to adapt based on what it sees. And then lastly, just kind of give you a visual to bring all this home on how DSPM and DLP work together in this environment. Here on this slide, you see mixed data. Let's say we've run our DSPM and we have our policies in place, but we've discovered the data, we've identified it, we've classified it, and now a user comes in and that user wants to move files into an AI system. That's where DLP now gets involved. It looks at those classification tags, and as those files are getting uploaded, it says, one of those doesn't breach any of my policy, I'm going to let that file go, but 2 do, and I'm going to block that. In all cases where we allowed 1 and we blocked 2, that was a safe result. That's what we were looking for, and that's what the power of a DSPM tool and a DLP tool in a connected environment gives you. Thank you for your time. We have a booth out there. I have some really terrific solutions engineers here, would be dying to understand kind of what you're tackling with in your environment. And if we can help you, we'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time.